All right, Richard, do you want to hear about how I'm going to teach some of the fundamentals of the Go programming language?
Yes, I'm. There is a design decision that I'm assuming that they made that we're about to see. That I'm going to be. I'm very curious about. I'm gonna wait till after you pass that part to ask about it.
Okay. If you're watching my terminal just now, I ran a couple commands. If you're new to terminal or command line or CLI terminology, I used a command called be interesting to see how each of us say these things out loud, because I don't know that I've heard a lot of people say these things. I say make dir for this.
Yeah,
What do you say? Same?
make dir. Yeah, I
Make
say
dir?
make dir.
Okay, make dir, make directory, right? Or create a folder, basically, in other terms. So I named it medicine because our use case tonight is going to capture a very important part of medical history, Richard. You
Invention
know,
of penicillin.
no, that's a very important part. So I also use this CD or change directory, move into the folder I just created. I'm already in that folder, so it didn't work that time. And now I'm going to use this code command. I have Visual Studio Code installed, and this will open Visual Studio Code for me. I told you about the new modules that they added. So now we have a go mod command. And this is creating a new, so in other languages, Richard, like you mentioned Python, right? In Python, we've got something, it's not even really enforced at the language or tool level necessarily, but we could use something called like a requirements.txt file. Yeah. Familiar with
Yeah,
this?
which defines the dependencies. So it's like your packages.json and JavaScript and your. I can't believe I'm blanking on it on Rust. Right, like it's got a.
Oh, fancy pulling out Rust over here on me.
Well, so, I mean, I was thinking about Rust because like Rust has something very similar where you can have.
Is that cargo?
Oh yeah, cargo.toml. That's what it is. That's the file that defines it. And cargo is also the package that manages it. Like pip is the one that does it for Python, and I guess you'd say like npm does it for
Yeah.
Node. But in Rust, they have like this idea of like it's either an application or a library, and like if it's an application, it must be in like a specific directory, and
Mm-hmm.
if it's not, it's assumed to be like. That was the first time I had seen a language that like enforced like what your final use case would be based on the structure of the current project. Whereas like Python is very loosey goosey. Like there isn't even like an official format for like how a directory should be structured. Like there are very experienced Python developers, Pythonistas, who have very strong opinions about how things should be structured, and many packages are structured that way. But there isn't like a Rust init or Go mod init or I guess Cargo init type thing for Python. Like you have to go in and either clone a directory that has like this template or use something like cookie cutters, which automates it for you, or just like manually create all these files and folders yourself.
Yeah, I mean, this goes into a huge part, especially if you're brand new to programming, right? You may think, well, I just write my own code, right? And then I run my code. But that's not necessarily true. Some projects you might, right? Some projects might have no dependencies. It may be a requirement, based off of something that you're trying to achieve with the project that you're building. Maybe your project can't have dependencies. Maybe your project is, I don't know, meeting some sort of compliance and the packages you want to use don't meet that compliance. There's a lot of reasons why you do and don't use other people's code, right? And what Richard and I were just talking about were the ways that you pull other people's code into your project. And Go
Well, it
didn't
could
actually
also
have this
it
for a
could
long
even
time.
it could even be your own code, right? Because you could
You
like
could.
write a thing that you want to reuse a lot, and like
Mhm.
you don't want to have to copy that code all of its way, so you could like import it into other projects.
That's right. Or you could, open source it and publish it for other people to use too. So, and then you continually use it in your own projects as well. Good distinction. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Go didn't have this concept of modules. Some of the community had built some things to fill this gap, and Go still doesn't really have a package manager. So when you pull in dependencies from Go, you typically are working with some sort of distributed version control system like GitHub. So oftentimes you'll see dependencies pulled in directly from a GitHub URL. But we gotta initialize our own here. I have to remember how to spell medicine each time I do it. So there we go. We created a go.mod file. I'm going to open that up real quick and take a look. Very simple so far. It tells me what version of Go I'm using. So that matches if I say go.version. Wait, no, sorry. No dash. Every CLI tool has different conventions.
I hate this so much because it's like Python and Rust, it's 2 dashes, and Java, it's 1 dash, and Go is 0 dashes. I guess the next language is going to be like -1. Like it just be like Ursian. Like there's to take off the V.
Yeah. So that matches my Go version, and then I just named our application here medicine, because I told you we're going to be talking about one of the pinnacle moments of medical history, Richard, in my opinion, at least. Are you familiar? No, great guess, but wrong. This is my personal take here. Are you familiar with the term resurrectionist?
No, I assume it's someone who resurrects as a profession.
In a way, yes. Back in the day, right? And when I say back in the day, I'm talking 1800s. We didn't know much about the human body.
I knew nothing about the human body in the 1800s.
Yeah, you didn't. I can vouch. Everybody knows this fact. They love to throw out that like surgeons also used to cut people's hair, right? And they were barbers. You would go to the barber, get your hair cut, and then get something lanced or cut off your, like some sort of cyst removed from your body, or your tonsils cut out. Your barber does?
Oh no, like my doctor. Like I took my dog to have her knees like operated on, and they shaved her legs. They shaved her from like the waist back. So like they still cut hair. I mean, maybe it's one of those things of like they do it out of like an old timey tradition.
Let me ask you a question real quick, Richard. Do you and your dog share the same doctor?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Dogman. You know, Dr. Dogman.
Anyway, how do you learn something, Richard?
Usually it involves me making a huge mistake and then getting yelled at.
So you might say that's through experience, right?
Yes.
If you are a up-and-coming doctor in the 1800s and you're very interested in why do these people keep dying, how are you going to learn about what kills them?
I assume you pray about it.
Yeah, that's a great option, especially during that time period. Yeah. Doesn't see a lot of results.
I know. I could make people sick. And then now that I know what made them sick, look at what symptoms they exhibited.
Yeah.
Right. And then I could work out how to cure them based on those symptoms.
Doctors at that time absolutely made a lot of people sick. They didn't even know that they were making people sick. The person would just die after being treated by this doctor, mostly because they would just bleed them. They'd just like cut them open and be like, you got too much blood, which that's a problem.
Common ailment. I will pose this question to you. How much blood should a body have?
It's unknown.
You don't know. Yeah.
But in order to study this, you got to have bodies, my friend. How do you get a body? If you're a doctor,
you kill someone. You just said I kill a lot of people.
Well, if you kill someone, you may not be able to study very long because you go to prison.
They can't catch me. I'm a doctor. I'm very smart. They don't even know where blood comes from. They certainly don't know about fingerprints, DNA. They don't know about any of this. Dr. Richard, so-and-so died. I'm like, oh, it sounds like he had too much blood in him, or his humors were out of balance. Did you hear him try and tell a joke?
Oftentimes the doctors were of upper class. They would never think of dirtying their hands with having to source dead body. So what do you do when you're upper class and you don't want to do something because it's too gross or too illegal? Or
you lobby Parliament, change the laws.
Yeah, you might do that, or you could just pay a poor person to do it,
or tell a poor person you're going to pay them, and then after they deliver it, you call the constable.
Actually, some of the resurrectionists would do that to the doctors if the doctors didn't end up paying them or started working with a different resurrectionist. They would just go dump a body on the doctor's doorstep.
Like Ding Dong Ditch, but with a body.
Yes.
Is it true that like people would have like booby traps on their grave to prevent grave robbers?
I mean, if you got something worth stealing down there, right? But oftentimes the
My
resurrectionists,
eternal soul.
depending on where and when we're talking about, the law was a body is not property. Body belongs to no one. So stealing a body, not illegal.
Not stealing.
Stealing
Finding.
anything on the
Is that
body, like
it's like
jewelry,
a
that's theft.
this makes sense. It makes like it's like the common law version of like what happens today. Like if you go to the park and find a duck, if there's nothing on the duck, you can just take it home. But if it's got one of those like tracking
The
things
tag?
on its
Yeah,
like, yeah, you will get in trouble because like it has a thing on it. It's got jewelry on it.
that's right. That jewelry belongs to that duck.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, it belongs to the conservation. Whoever put the
wildlife.
bracelet on the duck. Yeah, it's a
Um,
state-owned duck.
government agent. That duck. That duck, sir, is a government employee.
Yeah, it's assaulting a federal agent.
I thought it'd be fun to learn about concurrency and some of the features of the Go programming language by building our own gang of resurrectionists to go grab some
All right,
bodies. What do you think?
I like it. I
Cool.
assume we're gonna run into some race conditions when we have like all of the resurrectionists calling dibs on specific graves and then going
Yeah, I mean,
to
think about it.
take them out.
If you're already digging a grave, you can't have somebody else come in and dig that grave too, right? Like it's a limited resource, right? And so
Yeah.
the state of the grave is either dug or undug. You can't be both at the same time. This is not a quantum grave, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Well, you don't know if it's dug or not until you get there, right? So it like
Once it's observed, then you can know the state of the
that
grave.
one.
And you know what? Once you observe the grave, you might accidentally cause another grave that is entangled with that grave to also be dug. Maybe these are quantum graves, actually, when I think about it.